The kiss fell upon Barnaby, the teddy bear's forehead, and the emotional floor collapsed. Air vanished, the past screamed, and buried grief revived in seconds. Nothing there made any sense, and precisely for that, everything transformed. Subscribe to the channel and uncover what happened. In a world where the gleam of gold and boundless luxury should have been synonymous with fulfillment, there was a man for whom it all amounted to a hollow echo. Ethan Hayes, a 38-year-old millionaire entrepreneur, inhabited a mansion that, on its exterior, presented an image of success and opulence. A true palace erected upon Bel Air's most coveted hill. But within, it was a labyrinth of solitude, a silent mausoleum where laughter and the warmth of love had perished alongside his beloved Eleanor. Each vast room, every valuable piece of art, each Persian rug covering the marble floor, all seemed to scream the absence, the dearth of life that permeated the heavy air. His profound grief was not merely a phase, it was a permanent state, a glacial shadow that accompanied him from sunrise to sunset. Ethan moved through those immense corridors like a restless spirit, a ghost in his own dwelling. His routine was mechanical, almost robotic. He awoke with the sun, yet without light in his eyes. He took his breakfast at a table that could seat a dozen people, but it was perpetually vacant, save for his solitary plate and a cup of bitter coffee. The household staff, who moved silently as shadows, were instructed to make no sound, to initiate no conversations, simply to exist in the background. He perceived them not as individuals, but as extensions of the edifice that maintained his life's function, without the need for any meaningful human interaction. Work, once his passion and refuge, was now merely an obligation, a means to fill the interminable hours. He spent his days in his high-tech office, surrounded by computer screens and important documents, but his mind constantly drifted, always returning to the same image, the face of his wife, the smile he would never again see, the touch he would never feel. The pain of a past he desperately tried to erase, yet which stubbornly refused to depart, grew heavier with each passing day. The mansion, once a haven of laughter and affection, had transmuted into a golden prison, a constant reminder of all he had lost and all he believed he would never again possess. He had sealed himself off from the world, constructing invisible yet impenetrable walls around his heart. Friends attempted to draw near, but were met with chilling indifference. Family, once a source of support, now regarded him with pity and an understandable distance. Ethan firmly believed that happiness and love were privileges he would never again experience. Life for him had lost its hue, its savor, its purpose. Luxury was an empty shell, and solitude his only faithful companion. He had convinced himself that he was destined for this vacant existence, a life adrift without emotional bearings, merely waiting for time to elapse, with no horizon to gaze upon or reason to smile. The sheer vastness of Ethan's estate, with its immaculate gardens and grandiose salons, stood in stark contrast to the diminutiveness of his own being. He had shrunken within himself, becoming an almost imperceptible figure amidst such splendor. His footsteps echoed through the corridors, the solitary sound of his presence reverberating in every corner. Each night, as he lay in his king-size bed, the darkness seemed to wholly engulf him, and the nightmares of the past relentlessly haunted him. There was no solace, no peace, only the certainty that his life as he knew it had reached an ultimate terminus, and what remained was merely a somber and unending epilogue. He expected nothing, desired nothing, only the annulment of his own anguish. Despite surrounding luxury, each day in the mansion was an empty repetition, a heavy burden of silence and memories Ethan Hayes futilely pushed aside. He moved through opulent rooms like a ghost, staff nearly imperceptible, all trained for the invisibility and discretion he demanded. Yet one somber morning, this isolation was abruptly challenged by an unusual sound, a subdued murmur from the service entrance, followed by a restrained cry echoing through the home's vastness. It was Camila Rodriguez, the new housekeeper, a young woman with tired but resolute eyes, hired to replace the woman who had retired. Beside her, holding her hand firmly, stood a diminutive girl with light brown hair and curious eyes, Maya Rodriguez, barely 2 years old. Ethan, passing through the main hall, halted abruptly, disapproval marking his brow. Children were no part of his mansion's landscape. The contract was clear: discretion, silence, professionalism. Camilla, perceiving her employer's glacial gaze, felt her face warm. "Mr. Hayes, my deepest apologies," she began, voice a whisper steeped in apprehension. "My last-minute babysitter could not come. I had no one to leave Maya with. She will stay quiet, I promise. She will not disturb anything." She tightened her hold on her daughter's hand, Maya now regarding Ethan with fear and childish fascination. Little Maya, fragile and defenseless, seemed a vibrant spot of color amidst the cold, monochromatic home. Ethan offered a brusque nod, wordlessly. His irritation was palpable, but something in Camilla's quiet dignity, or Maya's disarming innocence, restrained his fury. He pivoted, retreating toward his study, closing the door with slightly more force than usual. The child's presence was an unsettling reminder of a life he had lost, of a family that would never be. Camilla, relieved but still tense, took Maya to the service area, improvising a small corner. From her bag, she produced Barnaby, a worn caramel teddy bear, and some children's books. "Mama will be working close by, all right, my love? Stay quietly with Barnaby," she whispered, kissing her daughter's head before resuming tasks, her movements swift, efficient, trying to compensate for their presence. Maya, accustomed to her mother's routine, settled onto the cool floor, embracing Barnaby with devotion. Her tiny fingers explored its soft fur, and a sweet smile bloomed on her lips as she conversed in her own language with the toy. Ethan, in his study, tried to concentrate on financial reports, but his mind divagated. Somehow the child's silent presence downstairs disturbed him, breaking the isolation bubble he had so carefully built. Later, during a coffee break, Ethan found himself wandering down the corridor to the service area. Not intentional, or so he tried to convince himself. Curiosity, an emotion he thought eradicated, pulled him. He paused, hidden by a column, observing Camilla scrubbing the kitchen floor with fervor. Maya was seated nearby, engrossed in her own make-believe world. Barnaby rested in her lap, and she gently cradled him. Suddenly, Maya elevated Barnaby to her face, eyes alight with pure, unfiltered affection. With a delicate, instinctive gesture, she inclined her head and imprinted a soft kiss upon the toy's forehead. A simple kiss, yet imbued with profound tenderness that struck Ethan like lightning. Air thinned in his lungs, the coffee mug nearly slipped from his trembling hands. He froze. That scene, that exact gesture, was a perfect echo of a past buried under layers of pain and denial. In an overwhelming maelstrom, the image of his beloved companion, Eleanor, materialized before his eyes. She lay beside him, in their bed, soft morning light filtering through curtains. Her fingers traced his brow with tenderness. Then, with a smile illuminating her whole being, she would lean in, depositing a soft kiss there, on his forehead. "My love, my safe harbor," she would whisper, and Ethan's world would fit into place. The memory came with tsunami force, dragging not only the image, but the sensation, smell, warmth of her skin, the sweetness of that intimate moment. Ethan stumbled backward, leaning against the cold wall, his heart beating wildly. Memories fought so hard to erase resurfaced with brutal vividness, tearing the veil of indifference he had woven. It was as if time had folded, and he was again in that room, feeling the love he thought lost forever. The agony was excruciating, yet, strangely, there was also a prickle of something more, something he could not identify, a familiarity, a strange hope. How could such an intimate, particular gesture be replicated with such perfection by a child he barely knew? His mind, before a labyrinth of grief and self-pity, now became a battlefield for curiosity. He looked again at Maya, who continued to play with Barnaby, oblivious to the emotional earthquake she had provoked. Her innocence, her pure affection, were a stark contrast to the darkness that consumed him. Ethan felt an irresistible need to understand that gesture's origin. That trivial scene planted a seed of questioning in his soul. Could the universe be trying to tell him something? That love, in its purest, most unexpected forms, could have found a way back into his life, even through a child's kiss and an old teddy bear. Eleanor's pain was still a hole in his chest, but now beside it a new sensation sprouted, a fissure in his armor. He found himself forced to question his pain's nature, the rigidity of his grief. The rigidity of his grief, which once seemed an impregnable fortress, was beginning to yield, cracked by an unexpected glimpse of life. Ethan's universe, once so meticulously ordered and sterile, was about to be invaded by an innocence he had forgotten existed. It was on a Tuesday morning, bathed in a timid sun that barely dared to penetrate the heavy drapes of his Bel Air mansion, that Ethan's routine, and consequently his solitude, suffered a seismic tremor. Camila Rodriguez, the newly hired housekeeper, who had already earned a quiet respect for her discretion and efficiency, found herself at a crossroads. Maya's daycare, for her 2-year-old daughter, had unexpectedly closed due to a sudden plumbing emergency, and the only alternative was to bring her along to work. With a heart heavy with dread, fearing her employer's reaction, Camilla took a deep breath. She knew Ethan's reputation, a man who lived in self-imposed isolation, averse to any kind of disturbance. But what could she do? Leaving Maya alone was out of the question. The little one, oblivious to the tension that hung in the air over her mother, held tightly to Barnaby, her caramel-colored teddy bear, an inseparable companion of her childhood adventures. Upon arriving at the mansion, Camilla, her voice thick with apprehension, explained the situation to Mrs. Albright, the governess, who in turn relayed the message to Ethan. The news reached Ethan's ears like an irritating hum. A child in his home? This temple of silence and introspection? The idea was absurd. He, who barely tolerated the presence of adults, imagined the chaos a 2-year-old could cause. His thoughts were a tempest of irritation. Good heavens, what now? As if the chaos of the world outside weren't enough, I'll have to contend with children's noise in here, he muttered to himself, adjusting his glasses on the bridge of his nose, feigning concentration on a financial report that, in truth, remained blank in his mind. Reluctantly, Ethan permitted the girl's presence, but with the condition that she remain restricted to the service area and not disturb his peace. Camilla, relieved but still tense, thanked him profusely and promised that Maya would cause no trouble. She arranged an improvised corner for her daughter in the kitchen nook, with a few simple toys and the inseparable Barnaby. Maya, with her childish curiosity, soon began to explore the new environment, while Camilla dedicated herself to cleaning the living room, a few feet away, always keeping an eye on her daughter. Ethan, though he tried to ignore it, could not avoid the awareness of the child's presence. A low giggle, the clatter of a toy falling, small noises that, for him, were like hammer blows against his bubble of silence. From his upstairs office, he observed, through the crack of the ajar door, the scene unfolding in the kitchen nook. Initially, his intention was merely to monitor, to ensure the intruder did not overstep the imposed boundaries. But something in Maya's spontaneity began to captivate his attention. The girl, with her curly hair and large, curious eyes, seemed a vibrant splash of color amidst the palette of grays that was Ethan's life. She played with Barnaby, cradling it with an affection that would disarm anyone, except perhaps a man as hardened by grief as Ethan. Maya conversed with the toy, whispering unintelligible secrets, and gently swayed it, as if it were a real baby. Ethan, without realizing it, had ceased working. His eyes were fixed on the small scene, a spectacle of pure innocence that seemed not to belong in that world of marble and silence. He felt a strange pang in his chest, a sensation he had not experienced in a long time, something akin to a slight, almost imperceptible curiosity. Then it happened. The gesture. Maya, with a gappy smile and eyes shining with affection, brought Barnaby close to her face. With the utmost naturalness and with a delicacy that seemed impossible for a child of just 2 years, she tilted her head and gave a soft kiss on the toy's forehead, a long, tender kiss imbued with pure, unconditional love. Ethan's world stopped. The report on his desk, the spreadsheets, the numbers, all dissolved into a blur. The image of Maya and her teddy bear superimposed itself over another image, older, more painful, yet incredibly vivid. In a flash, he found himself transported back to the past, to the bedroom he had shared with his beloved Eleanor. The city lights filtered through the window, and she, with a knowing smile, leaned over him, kissing his forehead with the same tenderness, the same affection, the very same gesture Maya had just performed. It was as if a lightning bolt had struck the core of his soul, an overwhelming shock, a confluence of excruciating pain and a familiarity so potent it made him tremble. He felt the air thin in his lungs, and a wave of nausea assailed him. His eyes welled with tears he had not permitted to fall for years, tears that seemed to yearn to wash away the crust of grief that enveloped him. That simple, innocent kiss unearthed a memory he had fought with every fiber of his being to erase. A memory he believed he had sealed away behind 7 locks, buried beneath layers of work and isolation. The sight of the child reproducing his beloved wife's intimate gesture was a punch to the gut, a brutal awakening to a reality he thought he had overcome. It was not merely the pain of loss that resurfaced, but also the guilt, the regret for every unlived moment, every unspoken word. He felt exposed, vulnerable, like an open book in a forgotten library. The enforced peace of his solitude crumbled in an instant, revealing an abyss of suppressed emotions. Ethan stood there, immobile, watching Maya, who now laughed and spun Barnaby in the air, oblivious to the emotional hurricane she had unleashed in the lonely man's heart. The curiosity he had felt earlier transmuted into an urgent need to understand. How? How could such a particular intimate gesture be replicated by a child he barely knew? That kiss on the teddy bear's forehead was not just a kiss, it was a portal, an unexpected bridge to a past he swore to forget, and perhaps a crack toward a future he never imagined. The seed of a latent connection planted in that moment began to germinate, forcing Ethan to question everything he believed about his sorrow and the possibility of healing. Even with that spark of hope, Ethan Hayes' life remained a social desert, each interaction reinforcing the invisible barrier that cleaved him from the world. He attended social events by obligation, encounters with entrepreneurs that, superficially amiable, were merely empty exchanges of convenience and veiled gazes of pity. No one dared to broach his loss. Conversations revolved around figures, investments, and the latest football game, as if Ethan's sorrow were an elephant in the room everyone ignored. He felt like a wraith, floating among the living without truly belonging. His wealth, once success's symbol, now a burden, an armor isolating him. "Ethan, haven't seen you around much lately, have we?" an acquaintance said, with a forced smile that did not reach his eyes. "You should take a break. Relax a little." Relax? How could one relax when his heart was in tatters and soul in eternal mourning? He merely assented, a knot in his throat, retreating to the darkest corner of the hall, observing unseen, reinforcing his belief that solitude was an inevitable destiny, a sentence without appeal. Every invitation to a Sunday family barbecue, every mention of vacation plans, was a micro-humiliation, a cruel memento of what he had lost and would never have. He was a stranger in his own world, an aimless millionaire navigating a sea of indifference. It was into this isolation Camila Rodriguez, the new housekeeper, entered his life. A young woman in her early 20s with a weary yet dignified gaze. Initially, Ethan barely registered her presence, accustomed to silent staff who circulated through the mansion like shadows. But one day, silence was broken by a different sound, a child's giggle, followed by joyful babbling. Camila had needed to bring her daughter, Maya Rodriguez, a 2-year-old girl clutching a worn teddy bear, Barnaby, as if it were her most precious treasure. Ethan, in his office, immersed in papers that seemed to lack meaning, felt a sting of irritation. Children, he mused, did not align with the monochromatic order of his life. He left his office, prepared to instruct Camila to rectify the situation, but halted in the corridor. Concealed behind a marble column, he observed the scene. Maya sat on the living room floor, a priceless Persian rug staging her play. Barnaby, faded brown, had a nearly detached eye, its nose worn smooth from embraces. The girl held him, gently swaying him. Then she made the gesture, a movement so simple, so pure, it seized Ethan's heart. Maya inclined her head, her small mouth kissing the teddy bear's forehead. A gentle kiss, laden with affection, transcending innocence. An identical kiss. Ethan froze. The air grew thin, time stretched, transforming seconds into eternity. The image of Maya and her teddy bear dissolved, replaced by a vivid, painful flash, real as a punch to the gut. He beheld Eleanor, his beloved companion, intimately lying beside him, her hair fanned across the silk pillow, soft night light filtering through the window. He felt her skin's warmth, her perfume's fragrance. Then she turned to him, her smile weary yet full of love, and placed a light, almost imperceptible kiss upon his brow. The same kiss, the identical gesture of affection, care, surrender. That kiss, solely theirs, a silent secret of love and complicity. The memory struck him with the force of a tsunami, dragging years of suffocated grief, repressed sorrow, desperate attempts to erase the past. It was an overwhelming shock, a mixture of excruciating loss and an unnerving, terrifying familiarity. How was it possible? How could a gesture so particular, so intimate, be replicated by a child he barely knew? The pattern of his indifference, his enforced solitude shattered. A minuscule, terrifying fissure opened to the past, to emotions he swore never to feel again. An insatiable, almost sacrilegious curiosity burgeoned in his chest, forcing him to question his own sanity. Was this a sign, a cruel jest of fate, or something deeper beyond his comprehension? His hands trembled, cold sweat trickled down his nape. It was as if the world, once grey and lifeless, suddenly gained a colour, a hue he forgot existed, its intensity now unnerving him. Dr. Arthur Sterling's therapy sessions intensified. Ethan, still shaken by the incident, could not conceal his perturbation. Dr. Sterling, a man of impeccable bearing, analytical gaze, instantly perceived change. "Ethan, I perceive something different, an agitation previously absent," the therapist observed, adjusting his spectacles. Ethan hesitated, but his need to understand outweighed his desire to maintain appearances. He recounted Maya, Barnaby, the kiss, and the memory flash. Dr. Sterling listened intently, his expression neutral, subtly hardened. "Ethan, we must be cautious with these past triggers. They can be dangerous, leading you back to square one," Dr. Sterling warned, his calm voice laden with authority bordering control. Creating new emotional bonds, especially from disparate circles, can be extremely risky at this stage. You are vulnerable. Avoid anything destabilizing you, making you relive the anguish of loss so intensely. Focus must remain on your recovery, emotional stability, not on specters of the past or new dependencies. Dr. Sterling's words echoed in Ethan's mind. He felt a mixture of relief and frustration, relief for an explanation, frustration at his feelings minimized, almost pathologized. It was as if the therapist tried to protect Ethan from something he deep down yearned to explore. The moral tension was palpable. Ethan questioned his own feelings. Was he weak for feeling so profoundly moved? Doubt corroded Ethan from within, a silent plague spreading with each session with Dr. Sterling. The therapist, with his calm and persuasive voice, seemed to weave a web of precautions, warning of the dangers of clinging to mere emotional triggers, disguising the fear of a relapse as genuine care. Intense bonds, Ethan, can be pitfalls for a wounded heart. We must safeguard your progress. Avoiding new emotional dependencies is crucial for your recovery, Dr. Bro, Sterling repeated, his gaze seemingly monitoring every beat of his patient's heart. The doctor's words echoed in Ethan's mind, reinforcing the old wall he had built around himself. It was a grey morning when Ethan made the decision that weighed heavily on his soul. He summoned Camilla to his study, a room rarely used, but now a stage for a veiled goodbye. His tone was formal, distant, almost robotic, an attempt to hide the tempest roaring in his chest. "Camilla, I need you not to bring Maya to work anymore," he said, the words scratching his throat. She looked at him, her brown eyes expressing a mixture of surprise and hurt, but maintained her upright posture. "I understand, Mr. Hayes," she replied, her voice low but firm. "If that is the case, I can arrange for someone to stay with her at home, or we can adjust the hours so she does not need to come." Ethan felt the weight of her dignity, the way she refused to bend even under the threat of losing her livelihood. Camilla's mention of adjusting hours was an attempt to keep the job, to protect her daughter, but Ethan, consumed by fear and Sterling's influence, could not recede. "No, Camilla, it is not a matter of hours. It is better that she no longer comes. I need more tranquility here," he lied, feeling like a coward. The news struck Camilla like a punch to the stomach. The humiliation and the threat to her sustenance were palpable. What would she do now? Where would she leave Maya? The fear of failing to provide for her daughter, her greatest nightmare, gained real contours. Maya, in turn, sensed the change in the air. Days without the small adventures through the mansion, without the curious glances at Uncle Ethan, left a void in her small world. She would ask her mother, "Mommy, where's Uncle Ethan's teddy bear?" And Camilla merely embraced her, swallowing tears and contained rage. The mansion, once a workplace and now a stage for a nascent connection, transformed again into a cold and oppressive environment. But this time, the coldness stemmed from Ethan's decision. The separation was painful for all, a controlled but intense suffering that reverberated through the empty corridors. It was the story's lowest point, where fear and external control almost suffocated the hope of connection and healing, leaving a trail of sadness and uncertainty. The days that followed were a torment for Ethan. The mansion, which once seemed a mausoleum of memories, now transformed into a deafening echo of absence. The silence was deeper, heavier. There was no longer the sound of Maya's tiny footsteps, nor Camilla's discreet murmur. The absence of the girl and her mother left a void no wealth could fill. Ethan tried to convince himself that he had done the right thing, that he was protecting his mental wellness, as Dr. Sterling insistently suggested. But with each solitary meal, each sunset observed from his library window, the image of Maya's kiss on Barnaby and Camilla's gentle smile returned to haunt him. He perceived that the solitude he now felt was far more acute than before. It was a self-imposed isolation, a punishment even crueler. The epiphany came during a session with Dr. Sterling. The therapist, with his habitual composure, spoke about the importance of maintaining distance from emotional triggers and avoiding relapses. But this time, the words sounded hollow to Ethan. He looked at Dr. Sterling, at the controlled expression of the man who called himself his guide, and a chilling clarity struck him. The therapist was not so concerned with his cure, but rather with maintaining control. Sterling feared losing control over Ethan, over the treatment, over the financial stability a millionaire client represented. Protection was, in truth, a form of isolation, a way to keep Ethan dependent. "Dr. Sterling," Ethan interrupted, his voice firm for the first time in a long while, "you are not helping me to heal. You are helping me to stay alone." The therapist tried to argue, but Ethan no longer listened. He finally realized that Maya's gesture was not a trigger for past pain, but a bridge to love, to the memory of his beloved Eleanor, to the possibility of a different future. It was an invitation to life, not a reminder of death. In that instant, Ethan made his choice. He chose the path of healing, of belonging, confronting his deepest fears and the external barriers Dr. Sterling had erected. He rose from the armchair, looked at the therapist with a new determination, and said, "Our therapy ends here." Dr. Sterling tried to protest, but Ethan was already leaving, feeling an enormous weight lifted from his shoulders. It was the protagonist's turning point, the choice of a new destiny, the courage to seek what had been denied. With his heart pounding, Ethan sought Camilla. It was not easy to find her. She had secured a part-time job at another house, but he knew where she lived, a small, simple apartment in a more distant neighborhood. When he saw her with Maya in her lap, he felt a pang in his chest. "Camilla, I need to talk to you. I am so sorry," he began, his voice choked with emotion. Camilla looked at him with distrust, but Maya's face lit up upon seeing him. "Uncle Ethan!" she exclaimed, extending her little arms. Ethan knelt, feeling Maya's small hand on his face. "I was a fool, Camilla. I was afraid to feel again, to relive the pain. Dr. Sterling made me believe I needed to isolate myself, but he was wrong." Ethan explained his fears, the therapist's influence, the confusion in his mind. He asked for forgiveness, a sincere and humble plea that came from the depths of his soul. I understand now that Maya's gesture, that kiss on Barnaby, is not a painful memory. A nascent perspective unfurled, a faint glimpse that perhaps the past was not merely an insufferable burden, but also a portal to something he had forgotten existed. Despite Dr. Sterling's admonitions, which resonated in his mind like a discordant bell, Ethan could no longer ignore Maya's presence. It was as if the little girl had planted a seed of curiosity in his parched heart, a seed stubbornly sprouting even beneath the arid soil of grief. He found himself observing her from the corners of his vision, not with his initial irritation, but with a burgeoning fascination. Small gestures, like the way she clutched a toy or the soft sound of her laughter, began to fill the voids in the mansion that once seemed insurmountable. The interaction between them at first was minimal, almost imperceptible. A prolonged glance from Ethan as Maya played on the living room rug, a faint smile when she waved her tiny hand. Camilla, ever observant, perceived the subtle shift in her employer's demeanor. He who had previously appeared a marble statue now showed a sliver of humanity. One day, upon seeing Maya kiss her teddy bear Barnaby's forehead again, Ethan could no longer contain the question burning in his throat. He approached Camilla, who was organizing books on a shelf, and with a voice softer than usual inquired, "Camilla, that thing Maya does, the kiss on Barnaby's forehead, where did she learn that?" Camilla looked up, surprised by the question from Ethan. A faint blush colored her cheeks. "Oh, the little kiss, Mr. Hayes. I taught her that. My mother used to do that with me when I was little, and I passed it on to Maya. It's a way to show affection, to say, 'I love you,' without needing words." Camilla's explanation struck Ethan like lightning. It was not merely the gesture, but the origin of the gesture, the transmission from a mother to a daughter, from one generation to another. It was a legacy of love. In his mind, memories of his beloved wife, Eleanor, returned with overwhelming clarity. He saw himself back in intimate moments, in whispered confidences, in the soft brush of her lips on his forehead, a seal of affection, of protection, of surrender. Camilla's voice continued, but Ethan barely heard her, lost in the torrent of emotions that engulfed him. "It's a simple gesture, but it carries so much, doesn't it? My mother used to say it was like keeping a good secret in your heart." With each passing day, Maya and Camilla's presence became more essential in the mansion and in Ethan's life. He was not merely observing, he was reconnecting with life, with innocence, with the capacity to feel again. His questions to Camilla became more frequent, not just about the gesture, but about her life, about Maya, about the world he had deliberately ignored for so long. He discovered Camilla's daily struggles, her unwavering dedication to her daughter, the dignity with which she faced every challenge. And with each new discovery, the image of Eleanor, his beloved wife, did not diminish, but expanded, gaining new colors, new textures, as if the love he felt for her was now manifesting in other forms, through other people. The mansion, once a mausoleum of memories, began to breathe, to have a pulse. But not everything was a bed of roses. The shadow of Dr. Sterling loomed over Ethan, a constant, oppressive presence. The therapist, sensing Ethan's growing closeness to Camilla and Maya, intensified his pressure. In their sessions, which now felt more like interrogations than therapy, Sterling hammered the idea that Ethan was falling into an emotional trap, seeking to replace Eleanor with an infantilized projection of affection. "Ethan," Dr. Sterling said with his calm, controlling voice, "you are flirting with a dangerous relapse. These emotional triggers, especially with people from other circles, can destabilize all the progress we've made. We need to maintain emotional boundaries for your own mental health. It is crucial that you avoid creating new intense attachments now, so as not to confuse grief with an unrealistic codependency." Dr. Sterling's words, though sounding like advice from a concerned professional, were in fact chains attempting to bind Ethan back to his controlled solitude. They planted a seed of doubt, and more importantly, of fear. The fear of reliving the pain of loss, of becoming attached and being devastated again, was an abyss Ethan did not know if he could cross. The therapist's pressure, combined with his own vulnerability, led him to a breaking point. On a cloudy day with a heavy heart, Ethan called Camilla for a conversation. The words left his mouth with immense difficulty, each one laden with guilt and regret. "Camilla," he began, avoiding her gaze, I need you not to bring Maya to work anymore. Or perhaps that we work different hours. It's for my own good, you understand, Dr. Sterling? He said I need more space, fewer distractions." The phrase was like a stab to Camilla's chest. Her eyes, which had previously shone with the hope of a new opportunity, now filled with deep sadness and a pang of humiliation. She understood what Ethan could not say, that the presence of her daughter, of her own existence, was seen as a problem, a distraction. Camilla's dignity was wounded, but she quickly composed herself, her voice choked but firm. "I understand, Mr. Hayes. You are the employer. I will do as you ask." But inside, fear gnawed at her. How would she provide for Maya without that job? The separation was painful for everyone. Maya, confused, searched for Uncle Ethan through the empty corridors, and her absence left a hole in the mansion's routine that all the luxury in the world could not fill. For Ethan, the silence that had once been a refuge now became a torment, an amplified echo of his own cowardice. He had chosen fear, and the emptiness he felt now was even greater than before because he knew what he had lost, the chance to reconnect, to feel life pulse again in his home. Maya and Camilla's absence left Ethan in an even deeper void, a deafening silence that the mansion seemed to amplify. Every room, once filled with the promise of life the little girl brought, now seemed to scream her absence. Ethan tried to resume his mechanical routine, but the indifference that once accompanied him had been replaced by palpable anguish. He found himself looking out the window, expecting to see Maya's small figure running in the garden, or Camilla's discreet smile. The house without their human warmth reverted to a mausoleum, but now a mausoleum of hopes buried by his own hands. The emptiness became unbearable. The sessions with Dr. Sterling, once a safe harbor, now felt like a prison. The therapist's words sounded hollow, repetitive, and Ethan began to question the true intention behind such insistence on isolation. "He doesn't want me to fully heal," a voice whispered in his mind. "He wants me to depend on him, to keep paying for this protection against life." The realization hit him forcefully. Dr. Sterling was not concerned with his full recovery, but rather with control over his treatment, over the financial stability that a millionaire client represented. In an act of courage he didn't know he still possessed, Ethan scheduled one last session with Dr. Sterling. This time, he did not sit as a submissive patient, but as a man who had awakened. "Dr. Sterling," Ethan began, his voice firm, "I understood your point. But you taught me to be afraid to feel, to be afraid of the love that still exists within me. Maya's gesture, that kiss on the forehead, is not an emotional trigger for pain. It is a bridge, Dr. Sterling. A bridge to memory, yes, but also a bridge to the present, to the possibility of loving again, of connecting." The therapist tried to argue, his voice full of disapproval, but Ethan did not listen. He had realized that love, in its purest and most unexpected forms, was not a threat, but the very essence of healing. He chose life, belonging, the chance to risk again. Dr. Sterling's control over him had come to an end. With renewed determination, Ethan decided to repair the damage he had caused. He could no longer live with the regret of having pushed away the only light that had emerged in his darkness. He knew Camilla's address, noted in his employee records. He got into his car and drove to her humble home in the more distant neighborhood of Van Nuys in the San Fernando Valley. Upon arriving, he felt a knot in his throat. The house, though modest, exuded a warmth and simplicity that contrasted with the coldness of his own mansion. He knocked on the door, and Camilla, surprised, opened it. Her eyes still carried the hurt from their last encounter, but also a spark of curiosity. "Camilla, I came to apologize," Ethan began, his voice heavy with sincerity. "I acted out of fear, out of pure cowardice. Dr. Sterling manipulated me, made me believe that I was protecting myself by pushing you both away. But I was wrong. I was condemning myself to an even greater solitude." Camilla listened in silence, her expression serious. Maya, who was playing in the living room, appeared at the door, her curious little eyes fixed on Ethan. I realized that Maya's gesture, that little kiss on the forehead, was not a trigger for pain but a reminder of the love I can still feel. It is a bridge to my Eleanor, but also to a new path, a path of healing. He paused, taking a deep breath. I would like to offer you a new work arrangement, Camilla, not just as a housekeeper, but as the estate manager for the mansion, with a competitive salary, comprehensive health benefits, generous paid time off, and the freedom to bring Maya whenever you need to. And, if you will allow me, I would like to grow closer to you both, to Maya. Not to replace anyone, but to learn to live again, to love again. If you give me this chance, I promise I will value your dignity and the affection Maya brought into my life. Camilla pondered for a moment. The proposal was generous, but what touched her most was the sincerity in Ethan's eyes, the vulnerability he rarely showed. She saw not just a regretful employer, but a broken man seeking redemption. Mr. Hayes, she replied with a faint smile, we cannot control what others feel, but we can choose how we react. I accept your proposal. And Maya, well, Maya adores Uncle Ethan. The connection with Maya was reaffirmed, with a tight hug from the little girl who ran to Ethan, and Camilla's dignity was restored not only with the job offer, but with the recognition of her worth and the respect he finally demonstrated. A year had passed since that day that changed everything. Ethan's mansion, once a monument to solitude and grief, now pulsed with life. The corridors that had echoed the heavy silence of yesteryear now resonated with Maya's infectious laughter, the sound of her little feet running and the joyful hum of conversations. Colorful crayon drawings adorned the kitchen refrigerator, a touch of innocence and joy that broke the environment's formality. Ethan, once a rigid and distant figure, had transformed. His eyes, which had carried the shadow of deep grief, now shone with a new purpose. He smiled more, a genuine smile that reached his eyes, and his posture was more relaxed, less burdened. Camilla, now the estate manager of the mansion, found not only financial security and dignity, but also a home. She and Maya became an integral part of that new ecosystem. Meals were no longer solitary for Ethan. The table in the vast dining room was now filled by Camilla's warm presence and Maya's vibrant energy.